So I've also taught courses on Islam at churches, these sorts of outreach things for several years now.
Now, in a number of stories that have been written about this, your own religious beliefs have at times been described as part of your motivation here. What are your religious beliefs? How do they play a role in both your teaching and how you interpret 9/11?
Well, I was born into a family of lapsed Unitarians, which is as lapsed as it gets. I was taken to the Frank Lloyd Wright Unitarian Church as a child right here in Madison. And, in a sense, I'm still a Unitarian because I never got the Trinity. I never got the idea that God is a father who would have his son tortured to death on a cross. That none of that Christian dogma made any sense to me. And, I basically discovered, Christianity and Judaism without the nonsense, which is Islam. I mean, this is putting it, of course, very baldly. And that happened, 14, 15 years ago. So I've been a Muslim that long. However, my theological beliefs are not all that different from what you would find among Unitarians, at least in terms of, the Christian universe. As far as how does this motivate me to do my work on 9/11, well, one of the highest names for God in Islamic tradition is al-haq, which means the truth or reality. As a Muslim, I have to be absolutely devoted to truth and reality and to combat satanic illusions that are created to drag people down spiritually. And I can't think of anything, worse in that department than the 9/11 attacks.
Do you have any, I don't know what the word is, empathy, sympathy for people who find this so difficult, Kevin? It's at such conflict with their own personal worldviews. They feel like their religion's being attacked. They feel like their patriotism is being attacked. How do you think about that?
Well, I empathize with them. I can understand how they feel. I went through a kind of a real tough time when I came to grips with this issue myself. As I said, it took me 2 years. And I guess, what I would say to these people is that, think about, to what extent are you worshiping your government as a form of idolatry? To what extent are you really worshiping God? Or, are you devoted to nirvana or the teachings of the Buddha or whatever your religion is, the real deep religious teachings? And to what extent are you, idolizing your government leaders? Governments are really not necessarily made up of the world's best people. There's a French saying, plus haut qu'il monte, plus que se voit son cul. The higher he rises, the more you see his, what. And I think, that's pretty much the way it is everywhere. Americans are being brainwashed into thinking that their government is so squeaky clean, made up of such good people. Sorry, folks, all governments are corrupt. And the idea that governments mount false flag operations against their own people, that they, they operate for profit and, for, their bribery, corruption scandals, that they do horrible things, that they torture and kill their own people. I mean, this stuff is taken for granted by just about everybody everywhere else in the world. But here in America, people are brainwashed into thinking that everything's so squeaky clean. And I invite my fellow Americans to become real patriots and join me in trying to get our Constitution back. We have a great Constitution in this country, and it's been trashed and burned by this current administration. And not just this administration. There's Democrats, or a lot of them are equally responsible. We need to lead the charge to get back the good things about this country before they're gone forever.
Okay. I want to get back to talking about your class. We'll do that when we come back right after this. My guest this morning is University of Wisconsin-Madison lecturer Kevin Barrett, and we are talking about his upcoming class on Islamic Studies, an introductory class that will include, and this is my next question to you, Mr. Barrett, some of your very now well-stated views on 9/11. And I think there is a perception out there that this is a class that you are teaching on 9/11 and on disputing the commonly held government view on this, and espousing your views, that this was a government conspiracy. How do you plan to incorporate what is the controversy here into this class?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation about this out there. In fact, if students sign up for my class with the idea that they're going to get a Conspiracy Theory 101 class or what happened on 9/11 class, they're going to be sorely disappointed. It's only about 5% of the class. We have 1 week in which we'll be critically analyzing the idea of the war on terror. And 9/11 is even a small part of that week, really. So it's, it's really not about that.
And how do you handle student response, Kevin? For those students that say, you are crazy, here's what really happened. How do you handle that kind of exchange?
Well, I'm not going to be teaching my views. That's another thing everybody gets wrong. I'm simply going to be presenting other people's views, the ones that I think are worth hearing, and students get to make up their own minds. And normally I would present the different views with equal enthusiasm. I would present the official story without sarcasm in my voice. I'd make it sound, I'd present it just about as enthusiastically as I'd present Nafiz Ahmad's critique. That's how I teach. I try to, ventriloquate different people's voices and do a good job on everybody's voice. And likewise, students of all persuasions and all opinions, I try to enthusiastically celebrate their contributions, even if I personally think they're completely ridiculous.
You have officially become a political football. You are, this has been talked about by both gubernatorial candidates. You've been renounced in the legislature. The legislature is using this as yet another reason to call for decreasing funding to the University of Wisconsin. To what degree does this, is this at all relevant to what you do? Do you have any response to that? Do you feel like you have any role to play in that kind of political conversation?
Well, I'm happy to see that there are a lot of people in Wisconsin who stand up for that old line, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll, fight to the death for your right to say it. We have a lot of people like that in this university administration. They don't agree with me. I know very well that I haven't yet met anybody in this university administration who agrees with me. I have met a whole lot of professors who do, but nobody in the administration. And I really appreciate them being willing to stand up for somebody who has controversial ideas that they don't agree with and say, hey, the fact that he has these ideas doesn't mean he's not qualified to teach.
So what was that process like? Provost Farrell conducted an investigation of some kind and determined that you were qualified to teach and that the university was comfortable having you teach. What was that process like?
Well, he basically looked at my teaching history, my evaluations from students and from fellow teachers, and found that they were all pretty high, that I appear to be a very good teacher, which I think I am, and that he looked at my syllabus, he and some other people, took a close look at my syllabus to make sure that this was all appropriate material for an Introduction to Islam class, and they were satisfied that it was. So he said, yeah, I don't think I agree with your ideas here. That's not the point, though. The point is that, is what's going on in the classroom, and we've determined that you should be able to do a good job of teaching, and I hope to live up to that.
I'm not going to pretend to understand the politics of higher education right now, other than I believe they get increasingly complicated. Increasingly influenced, I think, by outside events like budgets and political views. Are you worried that you're shortchanging your own career, that that you will have difficulty pursuing your chosen field by virtue of the controversy?
I think what I'm doing is angling on the long term. In the short term, I may have some problems. It might be a little harder to get rehired next semester. Maybe not, though. I think a lot sooner than most people realize 9/11 is going to blow wide open. The official report doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's very simple. Any trained academic, anybody with any critical thinking skills at all, can read the official report and read David Ray Griffin's refutation, and the report just falls to shreds. Now, anybody who's willing to live with that report as the official record of the most important event of our century has no business calling themselves an intellectual or a teacher or anything. I mean, it's that obvious.
Let me ask the obvious question on behalf of viewers who are probably thinking this right now. Why would the government do this, Kevin?
Well, for the same reason that governments have been launching false flags attacks against their own people since history began, to get people to run to the government for protection. And in the case of a strong government that wants to launch a war against a weaker government that would never dare attack them, they fabricate a false attack to justify an aggressive war by the stronger power to seize the resources of the weaker power. This happens over and over in history.
There was a piece in Isthmus a week or so ago, and you were among the people interviewed in there and quoted in there. But if we can, and probably unfairly, lump those of you together who believe that this is not as the government portrays it, you were described as feeling like America has been taken away from you. The implication being that you're sort of disenfranchised and bitter. How would you characterize that?
Oh, no, quite the opposite. I feel extremely confident and optimistic that we're going to take America back. I think America was gradually taken from us after World War II with the national security state being built up and our democracy being undermined. And I think 9/11 is going to allow us to take back America and restore the Constitution to what it really is, but what has been ignored for the last couple of decades at least.
And to those on the political left that disagree with you, I mean, they have their own, there were mistakes made, ignorance in the government, but can't buy into the theory that the government was responsible for this.
Well, I asked these people to go and just watch that controlled demolition of Building 7 that we just saw, and then watch Larry Silverstein's confession that he demolished it. He said, we decided to pull the building, and we pulled it, and we watched it come down. He said that on a PBS documentary called America Rebuilds. Go look at that. And then look at the fact that the 9/11 Commission never even mentioned Building 7 and never even mentioned Larry Silverstein, the overinsured landlord of 6 weeks who made billions of dollars on his 6-week investment and confessed to the demolition.
Kevin Barrett, thank you very much.
You're welcome,
appreciate
Neil.
you taking the time to do this.
Thanks. I appreciate your having me.
We'll come back and wrap this up right after this.